Hi everyone, it's Renee with Delaney Jane Cards. Welcome back to my channel. I thought we would jump right into this today because I want to do 5 cards, 1 kit with my very first Hedgehog Hollow kit. My friend Amanda over at Rise and Procrastinate, she recently became a member, a part of a contributor to their kit. Like, she's on their design team. So this is the first time I have ever purchased one of their kits. So what you see here is me taking a piece of watercolor paper and I am ink blending from light blue to dark blue all the way up through pink and purple. I'm just going to create a very beautifully blended background. And the colors seem very, very light because I'm using a blending brush and because this is watercolor cardstock. So I think I could have got a much more bold look had I used regular cardstock, but I didn't. But what I want to create is basically water and sky, kind of a beautiful background, a beautiful like sunset background. So this is kind of the odd duck in my 5 cards. I wanted to create something. Well, let me just rewind here. When I sat down with this kit, it's very, very masculine. And I wanted to see what else could be made with it. So this is actually the very first card, the very first time I played with the kit. And I wanted to create something that was, could be used to just encourage, could be used for a woman, a man, a child of any gender. And this is what I came up with. I love these mountains and think that they are just stunning. So I thought I would do this kind of scene with the mountains in the background and, kind of see what I get. Now remember, this is watercolor cardstock, so you don't get the greatest impression when you first just stamp. Oh, and Addie was in here. She was handing me things. So if you see things just slide on the screen, my almost 2-year-old was helping. I also don't have any masking paper currently, so I'm just using a Post-it note and some repositionable Scotch tape. I have covered the Post-it note with the Scotch tape and then used a piece to hold it down. It makes my mask waterproof and it held it in place. So I covered the mountains and then I blended over again with that purple to kind of give a glow behind the mountains. And I, for some reason, kind of always think of mountains as purple. I think isn't it song? America, is it America the Beautiful? Or, man, I am a terrible American. I don't even know the name of that song. They talk about purple mountains, majesty. So in my head, mountains are always purple. I know, weird, right? So I'm just using some violet shades here to purple up my mountains. Is purple up? Purple up's got to be a word, right? Or can we make it a word? To purple up the mountains? To color them purple. And I didn't like mask off to color them in. And I just added some deeper tones where, there would be a shadow from one mountain kind of leaving a shadow on the other one. I didn't show me taking the darkest color and actually filling in the outline like I just did there with the lightest color. I did go through and like fill in all the outline with the darkest purple just to make it look a little more solid. So once I colored that up, I put my mask back because I wanted to make the edge of the ocean deeper. At first I tried to ink blend and, I'm using that blending brush so it's not dark. So I decided to just grab a couple of Copics and reinforce that line between the mountains and the water. I think it absolutely needed this because, well, for one, I didn't mask off when I colored the mountains, and for two, I needed that depth in the color at the horizon line. And then I wanted to blend it out with my ink, but of course I'm using a blending brush, so I can't get a lot of ink on there. So I just went direct to paper, and then I'm going to just blend out the edges with my blending brush here. And it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to kind of look blended, and that's what I was going for. And the reason I'm using distress inks and not like completely Copic coloring is I wanted to do some fun water splatter, and I thought that, having the reactive ink would be great. I also chose distress inks and not oxides because I wanted to color over them with Copics, and although you can color over them with Copics, it could potentially clog your nibs, and I'm not into that right now. So here I'm adding my little droplets of water. I just used the distress sprayer and tapped the straw so that it left water spots all over my card. And this is kind of awesome looking, I think. I mean, I like it. Then I decided to pull one of the sentiments out of the same stamp set that the mountains come in. And this stamp set is called To All the Men in My Life, and it's pretty cool, but it says the best view comes from the hardest climb. And I think that you could give this to anybody because, well, encouragement cards are good. For this card, I pulled out a piece of Yupo paper, and I'm going to use my alcohol inks. I haven't played with them in a while, and I don't have a ton of colors, but I thought that I would give it a try. Now, I don't finish this card in one sitting. I don't finish this card right away because I wasn't sure I liked it. Like I said, it's been a while since I used my alcohol inks, so I forgot what I was even doing, and I couldn't apparently close them, and I got ink everywhere. It was fun but messy. So what I was trying to create is water and like ocean floor or lake floor, because there is this very cool stamp set that has these men in a boat. And anyway, it doesn't work out right away, but I will come back to this. So here I'm just trying to add more depth and dimension and kind of like hard lines and, kind of the things that alcohol ink allows you to do with kind of that depth on the glossy cardstock. And then I used a piece of paper towel to kind of dab it up, just like I had done for the first layer. And see, I was not sold, not at all. So I thought I would keep going and use some alcohol lift ink and a dauber here to kind of, I guess, take away the color from this stencil. Now the stencil is pretty cool. It comes in the kit, and it doesn't have the name on it. I will have it linked below or listed below what the actual name is. But this alcohol lift ink is very, very cool. You put it on there, you kind of dab up the extra that sits on the surface, and then you rub it off. It takes away whatever ink is behind it. And I did this for the panel and created kind of an underwater scene with fish, and thought that it was, I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool. So I went on to stamping my image, and this is the Men at Play stamp set. It's got 3 different large stamps that could definitely carry a card. And I'm going to first stamp this down with versafine onyx black ink. Now, when I am flipping this over, you can see those air bubbles that are kind of between the stamp and the misty door. Those are going to create all sorts of issues with my stamping. So this is kind of the step where I was like, I'm not sure if I'm even going to use this card. But I did stamp it until it was nice and black, but it still had spots, like holes in the stamping. So I said, well, I have the stamp in my Misty. It is still very, very inky, and I figured I would just move on and make an additional card. So I'm going to stamp this on a piece of neenah Solar White cardstock. See, first I just laid it down on the paper, see how inky it still was. So I stamped that a few times until it was nice and black, and it is a very cool image. You could fussy cut this and do all sorts of stuff. So the stamp set has a bunch of sentiments that will fit in this little strip, and all the stamps, the image stamps, have this like little sentiment strip in them, and it allows for a very quick card. So I took that same stencil that I used on the alcohol ink background, and I am going to add some fish to this, to the water, and they're big. They're very big compared to the stamp, but I think it does work out fine. I am going to use a couple of different colors of distress ink to color my fish in and the bubbles. And I'm going to also shift the stencil and create kind of my own organic pattern with the fish and the bubbles, because these stencils are created that the pattern, well, not this one in particular, but the other ones, the pattern is very much in a line. Now, after I finished that, I decided to ink blend the sky, and I just used my stencil as kind of a mask so that I had a straight line to keep that sentiment strip straight. And I decided to add the Happy Father's Day sentiment to this panel. I just thought it was a very cool card for somebody to give for Father's Day, and I think it turned out just absolutely perfect, very masculine. So for this next card, I took another stamp from this set, and it's got these tools, and I heat embossed it in platinum, liquid platinum embossing powder on the center of this neenah solar white cardstock. I didn't show the stamping or the pouring of the embossing powder because I thought, well, you probably have seen that a bajillion times. But this is what I'm talking about with the other two stencils. They're very much linear like this. So you're able to kind of block off what you want. And I'm going to ink blend these tools in the background, kind of behind what I've already heat embossed. They're the same shapes, they're just a little bit smaller, so it does work out really well. I'm again going to use the stencil to block off that sentiment panel or sentiment strip and create kind of a mask. And then I decided to shade all the way around the edges. I'm going to go all the way out to the black distress ink, black soot, to create a lot of dimension and kind of that grungy look in the background. I decided I wanted to do some like splatters on it. So I have this old like splatter spray from U Studio, and I decided to just splatter it on. Then I wanted some larger splatters, so I did use the actual like straw to make some larger splatters kind of all over the background. I just thought it would be greasy and dirty if that's what you were doing. I mean, if you had all them tools, it's probably greasy and dirty. And this sentiment is awesome. It says, "Thanks for building me up." I mean, what a cool, very masculine sentiment, but you could use that for anything. So I went back to this panel and I had all them holes, and I decided, well, since it's Yupo paper, which is plastic, and versafine onyx black ink, I would smudge the image with my thumb and fill it in. And it worked. It worked. So I was like, well, let's keep making this card. So I stamped Happy Birthday in the sentiment strip, and then I'm going to heat emboss this in clear embossing powder. Now, be careful. Embossing powder is plastic, Yupo paper is plastic. So you can see here that I am being so careful because I want to melt one type of plastic, but not the other one. So I'm trying to hit this super fast and carefully with my heat gun so that it doesn't destroy my background. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this to a piece of black cardstock because it did warp just a tiny bit and I wanted to kind of hold it flat. So that is that card panel, and I think it's awesome. So this is what we've made so far. We have the mountains, two fishermen, and some tools. And then we're going to do the last card. Now, the third image on that stamp set is a golfer. And I was like, well, let's use it. Let's use that third sentiment and our third image and create something very cool. So I decided that instead of just stamping this down and in black or creating a silhouette, that I would kind of color with some embossing powders. So here I am going to stamp the image with some Versamark ink, and you see me use my anti-static powder bag there. That just makes sure that I don't have any powder that sticks in places that I don't want it to. And my paper stuck to my stamp when I opened it up, so I just rubbed it on there a little bit extra. And now I'm going to use some Moxie embossing powder, and I'm going to cover just the green, the putting green or whatever. And I'm going to take a dry paintbrush and I'm going to brush away the embossing powder that I don't want on my image. Before I heat set this, I am going to add the embossing powder in the other places. And this is that liquid platinum again. And I'm just going to brush it away from the flag here because I decided on a red flag. So I will use some red Moxie embossing powder to color the flag. Now this is a very simple thing to do. It's kind of easy to do with an image like this where everything is big and bold and separated, but you could do this with other things as well. So here I'm just heat setting this bit of embossing powder. So I have that liquid platinum, the Moxie green, and the Moxie red, and now I'm going to stamp the mountains. I have them lined up on the top of that sentiment strip. I redid my embossing bag because I have touched this panel, and now I'm going to add Versamark ink to my mountains. And I'm going to stamp right over top of my image because I have heat embossed the other images. So it's not going to take away that powder. And now I'm going to just pour on some embossing powder. Now this is, wow, it is a purple embossing powder. You heard me say the mountains are purple in my brain, so it's purple. But here it is over top of the line for the flag, or the pole for the flag, and it is partially on the golfer. So I just brushed it away. You don't have to do any masking or anything when you use this kind of a technique because the embossing powder isn't gonna show up that Versamark ink when you put it over top of already existing embossing powder. It's not gonna show up. So once I had that done, again, anti-static powder bag, and I am going to stamp a sentiment and use some white embossing powder, and this one says "You're the one for me," and I thought that it was perfect and could be great for, you know, just a love card or Father's Day card or birthday card, or just, you know, because he did something nice. And I'm going to just add this panel to my card base here. I just adhered it straight down. The card base is heavyweight cardstock, so it holds it flat. It did warp just slightly, but not enough for really any big deal. So here are my 5 cards. I hope you enjoyed my video. I tried to edit it so that it wasn't super long. You'll have to let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I'd like to know if you had a favorite card, because I do have a favorite card, and I am not going to share which one I think it is today. I did enjoy all of the different techniques, and I appreciate that the card kit is very masculine, but you can make it do anything you want it to do because you are creative. So thank you for watching today. I very much appreciate you stopping by, and as I always say, give cards generously. Bye.